Have you given much thought to how lucky you were?
Yeah, I always never know whether to think I'm unlucky to be the one that was chosen or lucky to be the one that actually escaped from that situation. So I am incredibly lucky.
Why do you think they did target you in the first place?
I'm not sure, because they booked me through my agency, so I don't know why they specifically asked for me.
Do you think they may have found you on social media, or is that what
I guess so, I guess Instagram.
Yeah. So you get the impression that they liked what they saw and they followed you from that angle?
Yes.
And that led them to your
Maybe
agent?
they wanted someone with like a large following, or maybe they thought that would get them the ransom they wanted.
Or do you think it was just your looks and the way you presented?
I'm not sure. I don't know. But why me? There's like loads of girls that do what I do, so I don't know why me particularly.
Did you ever get a chance to ask them?
No.
And they never gave you any idea as to why it was you?
No. They just look through all girls, but they normally choose low-profile ones, they said. But I was the only like British person they did, because they don't normally go for high-profile people, only low ones, so their families don't find out.
Because they
well,
said...
their families find out, but like more people like won't know about it because they'll just go missing and they won't actually find out what has happened to them. That's what they would say.
Because they said they made a mistake, didn't they?
Yes.
Because when they found out you had a little boy,
yeah,
a child, then it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, well, it's not that they wanted me to be with my son, it's the fact that it devalues women if you've already had a child. So it's like virgins sell for the most money, but the older you are, the less money you would sell for. And same with having a child, you're not as fresh.
Is that what they told you?
Yes.
So in terms of a sex slave, if you've had a baby, it's not much good for trade.
Yes.
I struggle to work out why they chose you specifically. They didn't give you any idea, though.
No, I'm not sure. Like, I haven't seen the emails that he sent to Phil before Phil forwarded me the emails about the details, because he would forward, like, the details of the hotel, where I'm staying in both Paris and Milan, so I didn't see the emails before that. So maybe that would indicate why they chose me.
Because it was such an elaborate plan, wasn't it? First Paris, then Milan.
Yeah, it was months of planning.
They'd gone to a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And there are photos of you and your little boy on your Instagram account.
And pregnant, yeah.
And pregnant?
Yeah.
So if they worked everything else out, how come they made such a basic mistake?
Well, that's what he was saying to me, but now obviously that's not why they cancelled the Paris shoot. It's because of a terrorist attack. So there was too much police activity in the city, so that's obviously why they cancelled it, because they couldn't do what they done to me in Milan in Paris.
No, but I mean further to that. I mean, they told you they'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
They kidnapped a young mum.
Yes.
And essentially, that's why they let you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they said to me. But obviously now I know that's not the reason. So they lied about that.
But surely they worked out you were a young mum from looking at your profile.
Yeah, they said that, well, Lucas said that he didn't scroll down enough to see the pictures because they were from way back.
So they did all that other planning, but
that's what he said, yeah.
Scroll down the Instagram account enough.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe him?
I believed him at the time, yeah.
Do you believe him now?
No, not now, no. Because more stuff has emerged, you know, at court, when I had to appear at court, be cross-examined. The prosecutor was saying all these things that were like, it didn't add up to what Lucas was telling me. For example, that he lived in Birmingham, he told me he'd never been to the UK in his life, that he ordered the 2 black ski masks in May, the black bag that I was in June, like all these things. And then, oh yeah, and that could the person that got into the boot with me be his brother, when Lucas was claiming not to even know that person. It's just the driver for Black Death. So it just wasn't adding up to what he had been telling me.
So you now know that he was lying to you about all these things?
Yes.
When you were with them, Chloe, for the 6 days, did they say anything to you about the main motivation, or was it just money?
It was to sell me as a sex slave. The auction was supposed to be on Sunday, and the starting bid was a $300,000 US ransom. So that they needed the ransom to stop the auction. And they said I wouldn't be sold if the money could come together from my agent. Because at first they asked, what does my family have to offer? And I explained not much. And then he said, what about Phil? I said, Phil doesn't have money either. So then he was like, can you give me 3 names of people that could help you in this situation? So I gave him 3 names, and then he emailed those names to Phil. And Phil's task was to get the money together by Sunday.
Their whole story to you about Black Death, this mythical organisation being involved, that was total fiction.
Well, there's still no proof that it doesn't exist. So to me, there's like three theories. Either they are part of Black Death and it's real, or Black Death is real, but they just are pretending to be part of it, or it just doesn't exist.
What do you think?
Because it's on the dark web, it's so hard to like trace and find out. So I don't think even the police know.
But what do you think is the real truth?
That I don't think they're part of it, because the way they've acted and, you know, like at the end and everything that's come out in court, I think it's just him and his brother now. And that has really relaxed me in thinking that, because it's so much better for me if it is just him and his brother as opposed to a whole crime organisation like against me.
You think they just made it up to make themselves sound a lot tougher?
And to make sure they actually get the money, because they brainwashed me so much. So if I knew it was just him and his brother, then it's not as scary for me. But them telling me that it's like a massive thing and they rule the police, they rule everyone, that means I would have to do everything they say, not answer any police questions, pay the money.
Who do you hold responsible for allowing this to happen?
Phil, my ex-agent, because he obviously failed to do the checks of the studio. And
is that why you sacked him?
Yes, yeah. Because the day after I was reported missing, he called other agencies in Milan and they said the studio doesn't exist.
So you think it would have been easy for him just to check?
Yeah, if he did that before I boarded the plane, then I wouldn't have been in that situation, so I hold him responsible.
You know, he does insist that he did do all the cross-checks, that he checked as much as he could. He still says that.
Well, clearly not, because then it wouldn't have happened. So.
Have you told him? Have you said that to him?
I don't speak to him anymore, so he knows I hold him responsible, though.
So your position basically is that, look, he was responsible for organising everything, doing all the background checks?
Because that's the point of an agency, to actually check out who you're going to, or like go with a chaperone. But to send a 20-year-old girl on her own, like I believed he'd done all the checks and like, you know, previous work, references, but he obviously didn't do that. So that's why I wouldn't take bookings directly, because it's not safe for that reason. So that's why I had an agency, and that was failed, so.
So when he says he went on the net, looked at Google Maps, all that sort of stuff, you don't believe him?
No.
He says he still supports you. He's still loyal to you.
Because he knows what I went through and how bad it was, so he's going to feel slightly responsible. Like, I know he can't admit that he didn't do the checks, but obviously you would feel responsible for sending me into the hands of those people.
He says...
And it's twice as well, it's Paris and Milan. It's not like it's just one time. So there's 2 studios that he didn't check.
So if it wasn't for the terrorist attack in Paris, you think they would have happened
Or
earlier?
at least after them saying that the Paris shoot was cancelled because it was burgled, he could have then thought, oh, that's a bit weird, and like done more checks just to be sure. But
he says he supported you enormously. It's cost him about £3,000 in accommodation in Milan and in clothing costs.
no, it's cost under £1,000.
Getting you back, and he hasn't had
He paid for the first 3 nights in my hotel in Milan and gave me €200 for food while I was out there. So it was about £900.
He says he hasn't had so much as a thank you.
Well, that's the least, I'm sorry, that was the least you can do if he's the one that got me into that situation. I think it's disgusting that he's even asking for money back from me when he's done a TV interview. He's probably got the money from that anyway.
It's an interesting point you make. So if the terrorist attack hadn't happened in Paris, this fellow or whoever's involved may have snatched you then.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
I believe that was their plan in Paris, yeah. Or slightly different, because in the court, you know, when they ordered the ski masks in May, I don't get why that was after Paris, so what would have been their plan in Paris, I'm not sure.
But you met this Andre,
Andre.
which you now know to be Lucas Herbert.
Yes.
You met him in Paris.
Yes, at the airport.
And did you suspect he was bogus then at all?
I didn't suspect anything, because you can't really predict, you know, what a photographer is going to look like. You can't judge someone based on how they look or anything. So it was just a normal guy. He spoke normally, good English. So I didn't suspect anything.
At that time, he paid for your taxi.
Yes.
So
yeah, I got into the wrong taxi, so that's why he had to come to the airport to sort it out.
It was a brief meeting.
Yeah, like a few minutes.
But you didn't suspect anything. He was very confident.
No, yeah, he was fine, confident. He just explained that the studio had been burgled That's why it can't go ahead. He was like, Paris is not as safe as it used to be. You know, just general chat.
And did he say then, I'll see you later, or I'll
No,
rebook
he
it?
didn't. He didn't say like about future plans. No.
So you what? Just shook hands at the train station?
We just paid the taxi, had that 2-minute conversation, and I went into the airport. My flight was in the evening, so I had to wait there all day. And then he went his own way.
So you said goodbye and that was it, and the next time you met him?
Was on the Tuesday in Milan.
In Milan?
11th of July.
In the back of a car?
Well, at the house.
Yeah. Well, the next time you met him was when you were attacked?
In Turin, yeah. Because he was claiming to be the one that's actually intervened with the Romanians that took me, and like the one that's saved me, so.
That's what he told you?
Yes. So I always believed that he was the good person in this, because he said the 2 masked men were Romanians. The driver, who I saw unmasked, who I've now identified as Michael, his brother, he was just the driver for Black Death, and then he was the one like in charge of them all and the boss, and he's come to the house to say that I can't be sold because I'm a young mother. He's told me this whole story and why it's a mistake, that he's the one that saw on my Instagram that pictures of me and my son and me pregnant. And he said he doesn't agree with that because that's the rule they're flexible on. If I was pregnant or if I had an STI, I would definitely not be sold. But the young mother is they're slightly flexible on because some clients don't mind it. So that's why he said he's strongly against that. So he's going to try everything he can to release me. But because he's high up, he's not as high as, he doesn't have the power to just let me go. So that's why he had to always like confront his boss, who was a level above him.
So Lucas was constantly making out that he was in fact your hero?
Yes.
That he was trying to protect you in the whole thing?
Yeah.
And you believed him at the time?
I believed him, yeah.
So just humour me here. So take me back to Milan. You get to Milan.
On the 10th of July, yeah.
10th of July. The next day, you go to the shoot. You get in a taxi to go to the shoot.
Yeah.
You go to the pre-arranged address.
Yes.
And when you get there, what happened?
So I stepped out of the taxi. I went to go into number 7. It was like a bigger building, but the door was locked. And I remember on the email it said, just walk in when I get there, because he might not be able to greet me at the door. So I called the number that was on the contact email, and a guy called Daniel answered. And I said, where's Andre? And they said, Andre doesn't get here till 9. Because I was a bit early, like 15 minutes early. So I said the door's locked, and he was like, oh no, it's not. But it was, so I knew I'd got the wrong place. So I was just standing there, I didn't really know what to do. And then he said, just walk a few doors down. So I went to like a smaller number 7. It was like, had gold frames on the door and glass windows. And I opened the door and it was unlocked.
Did it look like a studio?
Yeah, it was just a little building, but studios always, they're never like an elaborate thing. They just look like anything really. Even the Page 3 building's not, you wouldn't expect it to be that. So I opened the door, put my suitcase in, and I had to go round a corner. And there was like blackboards at the side, so although this bit was see-through, you had to go round. There was like a door at the end of the corridor and a door on my left, and the one on the left said studio, but there was still like no one talking, it was still silent, so I didn't really know what to do. So I was about to put my hand on the door that said studio just to open it to check if anyone was there, and that's when I was attacked from behind.
And how did they attack you? One person, two people?
One person put his arm around my neck and the other hand with a glove on my mouth and my nose, and another masked man rushed in front of me and held a syringe to my arm. Obviously I was trying to fight back because I didn't want that to go into my arm. I was trying to make fast, but I can't fight off 2 grown men, so they managed to get the syringe into my wrist, and then I was unconscious.
It must have happened very quickly.
It was so quick, yeah.
Was there time to be terrified?
It was just a panic, because at first, when his hand was on my nose, I couldn't breathe, and that's why I was trying to like get his finger off my nose so that I could actually catch a breath, and I managed to do that, and then I just couldn't do anything. You're so helpless in that situation.
You were there for a photo shoot, and all of a sudden you're being attacked. How did you process that?
Like, at first I thought wrong people got me on the way to the shoot, you know, I didn't connect it as a setup until I actually got to the place in northwest Italy.
So you couldn't even begin to imagine what was happening to you, really?
No, I was still thinking, like, what was the photographer going to say that I didn't turn up? And I just never connected it as a setup until I was actually told.
And did that injection make you drowsy straight away, or?
Oh, I was unconscious straight away, yeah.
So literally?
Like, as soon as that went in, yeah.
Within seconds?
Yeah.
What were you injected with?
Ketamine.
And how long did that last? How long did the effects of that last?
I think I was unconscious for a few hours. I didn't have the time, so I'm not sure, but definitely a few hours.
Now, I thought it was interesting. The Italian police confirm that there was ketamine in your system, and that they found an injection point, a needle mark. Now, if you are making all this up, the only explanation there is that you injected yourself.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Ketamine can be a party drug, though, can't it? Have you ever had it before?
No. No, I don't do drugs. I don't even drink, really.
When you first became conscious, where were you? What was
I was
happening?
in a duffel, like a black wax duffel bag in the boot of a moving car.
So take me through that. I mean, you don't know that you're in a black bag at that stage, do you?
No,
'Cause
no.
So you open your eyes and think,
I
what's happening?
open my eyes and I have like restriction on my mouth. Like I didn't know what it was at first. I had hands in my handcuffs and my ankles were handcuffed as well. And I didn't have the original clothes I had on. I just had my bodysuit and my socks. So they just stripped me of my jeans, my shoes and my jacket and my cap.
Were you all covered up?
What do you mean covered up?
Well, in this bag, like, was it dark inside or?
Yeah, it was dark, but there was a little hole next to my face for me to breathe in the bag. So I was trying to get what was on my face off, and I managed to work out it was tape. So I pulled the tape off, and I was trying to put my arms through the little gap that they'd left me to breathe. And I was like trying to feel where I am. I heard the engine, so I knew I was in a moving car. And it took me a while for me to actually like process that and like speak because of the drugs made me so drowsy.
Must have been incredibly claustrophobic.
Yeah, but when you're that doped up with the drugs, you just don't care. So eventually I managed to try and get a few words out. Like I was shouting driver, driver, like as loud as I could. And I was like feeling what's above me, and it was one of those covers on the boot. And I managed to like hit that, and it like collapsed and stuff. So I was managing to make noise now that the tape was off my mouth. And then it took a while before the car actually pulled over, and the two masked men came round the back. They didn't say anything. They just opened the door and tightened my handcuffs and like put the same tape I had, but just back over my mouth, and they zipped up the bag and stuff.
And they had masks on?
Yes, they both had masks on.
So you couldn't tell who they were?
No, and they wouldn't answer anything that I was saying.
Who do you think they now are?
Lucas and Michael.
So you think both brothers just acted in concert throughout?
Yes.
So they came back, they fixed up the restraints because you were making a noise.
Yeah.
They told you to what? Be quiet? Or
They didn't say anything.
didn't say a word?
Not a word.
Were you asking them questions or?
I was trying to speak, yeah, like where are we, what's happening, and they just wouldn't say anything.
And they just reapplied the tape?
Yeah, just like secured me more, zipped up the bag, propped over this thing with a bit like of tape there because it kept falling off where I was hitting it.
So they just wanted to shut you up?
Yeah.
And keep driving? And from there, they took you where?
From there was another stop after that because I was still managing to take the tape off because it was a hot day. It wasn't like sticking properly to my face. Again, managing to put my arms out of the hole. So the next stop, they actually had to put my arms behind my back so that I couldn't do what I was doing before and take my tape off and stuff. So they just did that, and then they put a bit of water, like fizzy water, into my mouth because I was saying that I'm thirsty and it's really hot. Like I was asking them to like just take it off or do something to make me a bit more comfortable. So they poured some water into my mouth and put my hands behind my back, but the bag couldn't do up when it was behind my back, so it just had to be like off my shoulders.
Chloe, your attention to detail is amazing.
Yeah.
And you recount this, centimetre perfect.
Yeah, I know. I just go through it in my head.
You still must think about it a lot.
I try and switch off as much as I can, but then sometimes it just comes back to me because it wasn't that long ago.
So you're going through this, and you must have been completely perplexed, thinking, what's going on? I mean,
yeah, at this stage I had no idea like why I'd been taken, what's the reason for it. So that was the scariest point for me, like not knowing why.
And who gets kidnapped these days? I mean,
I know.
It's not something that happens to the average person, is it?
Yeah.
So were you trying to make sense of that?
Well, I didn't know what was happening. My life is in the hands of these two people who I don't know. Like, what's going to happen to me? I just didn't know. So I was like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm not going to come out of this alive. Like, before I knew why I'd been taken.
But were you thinking, why? What's going on? There's two masked men here. How were you processing that?
Like, I wasn't panicking because I was still really dopey from the drugs, but I was just, you just have to accept it. Like, there's nothing I can do at this point.
Was there any sort of connection? Were you thinking, I've offended somebody, or somebody's picked me out for some reason? I mean, how were you trying
I know
to...
I've done nothing wrong, like, I don't know. This is what I was thinking when I actually got to the house, and when the unmasked man started talking to me, I was like, I've done nothing wrong, like, why have I been taken? You know, when they started telling me it was a mistake, and I was just thinking, it's got to be, because I haven't done anything.
When did they first tell you that it was a mistake?
The unmasked man told me when I was chained to the chest of drawers, he sat like cross-legged by my head and was saying they've been on the phone to the boss and they've made a mistake. So the boss will be on his way. And the boss turned out to be Lucas.
How many days into the episode was that?
That was the first day.
That was the first day?
Yeah, when I arrived at the house.
So on day one, they admitted to you that they'd made a mistake?
Yes.
That's a bit strange, isn't it?
Why?
Well, why would they go to all that trouble and then admit to you that it was a mistake?
Well, I don't know. If they've got the wrong person, then I don't know. What else can they say?
But does that not strike you as a bit weird?
Didn't at that time. Like, thinking back when I'm hearing like all this new stuff like from the investigation, it is weird. But then when you've been drugged and like put in the back of a car, you're not exactly going to think, oh, this is weird. Like, you don't think like that.
Was that the first conversation you had with them?
I had a conversation with the guy when he was in the back of the boot with me, because this was the third stop. An unmasked man got into the boot with me. So I was like lying facing the end, and then he was like lying behind me. And he was just he couldn't speak that good English, it was like a bit shaky, but he was trying to reassure me, like, nobody hurts you, just saying words like that. Because I was saying, like, where are we, like, who's the guy driving? And then he was like, I don't know. And that was scary to me, the fact that he didn't even know who was driving. So how can he reassure me when he doesn't even know who the person is?
And who do you now think that person was?
Michael.
Michael Herbert?
Yeah.
Lucas's brother?
Yes.
So you get to the farmhouse, they
Yeah.
take you inside, and then what do they say? What's the first conversation you have?
So they carried me inside the house in the bag and then put me on the kitchen floor and then unzipped the bag and told me to stand up, but I couldn't because it was too tight on my ankles. So they had to undo it and like do it back up, but looser. And I needed to use the bathroom, so they allowed me to have my hands free. So I followed Michael upstairs. And he came into the bathroom with me. He had to watch me go, and then I came out, and then there was like a blue sleeping bag placed next to a chest of drawers, and then the masked man was standing in the doorway, which had like beads on it. And then the masked man never spoke, so he would just like point and direct me to do stuff. So he just pointed at the sleeping bag. Like at first I didn't know if he meant go inside it or lay on it. So I went to like open it up, and then he like shook his head. So I lay on it, and then he like pointed for the unmasked man to put the handcuffs around the feet of the chest of drawers. So he did that for my hands and the other for my feet.
So you were shackled to the chest of drawers?
Yes, yeah.
So you couldn't go anywhere?
Yeah.
An old-fashioned, heavy chest of drawers?
Really heavy, yeah.
And then what happened?
And then after that, so they went downstairs, both of them. They were talking in a different language. And then Michael, the unmasked man, he came upstairs, and that's when he told me that there's been a mistake and they've been on the phone to the boss and they've got the wrong person. So he said the boss will be on his way. But he said he's got to go for another job. But then at this point, he was the one that was actually talking to me, and so I was just thinking that masked man downstairs is one of the Romanians that is not talking, like what might he do to me in the time where he goes and I'm waiting for the boss to come. But he said he's got to go. So then he went, and then that's the last I saw of him.
And then one day became two, and...
Yeah, so then there was more raised voices downstairs after a slam on the door. So then that's when I thought it was the boss talking to the Romanian, like having a go at him for getting the wrong person. So then there was another slam on the door as if someone had just left. And then eventually another unmasked guy came up to me and like sat on the single bed that was next to the chest of drawers. And he said, I don't know if you remember, but I briefly met you in Paris. And then that's when I connected that it must be a setup, because that was Andre. Like, I didn't recognise him at first because he had glasses on at Paris airport, but...
But Andre was really Lucas Herbert.
Yes.
So he... Okay. So that's when he started to concoct this story of how basically he was your hero.
Yes.
He was trying to fight everybody else to protect you.
Yes.
When in actual fact he was the...
He was the masked man, yeah.
He was the kidnapper.
We think.
Do you think these two are just completely crazy?
I think so, yeah. Like, it just doesn't even make sense. Like, who does that? And then it really is so weird. Like, they were so careful in some ways, as in, like, not using any technology to get me to the place. Like, he was always saying, oh, the police will never find you. You know, like, making them out to be so big, and then, you know, walk into the consulate, like...
They went to a lot of trouble to get you.
Yeah, I know. It was like must have been months of planning, and all the money that it cost. Because they booked my flights, my accommodation, they paid a model fee, like hired the location of the farmhouse, and just so much.
And then on day one, they try to turn that story around and admit that they've made a mistake.
But they still require the money because Black Death doesn't go unpaid.
When Black Death didn't exist for them.
Yes.
But, okay, so it's an elaborate story, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's so confusing. But...
So they're trying to, on the one hand, extract the money, and on the other hand, give themselves some sort of backdoor to get out of it.
Yeah.
So that you're able to tell police that they helped you.
But he said I can't answer any police questions anyway, so even though he helped me, I still wasn't allowed to say that, you know.
Well, he didn't want you to tell police that...
I had to make sure I told him that I wouldn't tell police anything. I'd end any investigation, because that was the rule of, like, a condition of my release.
I wanted to ask you, because you've copped a lot of criticism. You've come in for a lot of flack.
Yeah.
You know that. The suggestion that you've completely made all this up, does that offend you?
It doesn't offend me, no. Because I get it, like, it's people that are just picking parts of the story and they don't know, because it's such a complicated story, they don't know everything, what happened and all the details, and now it's even more confusing what the investigation is showing. So I see why people have doubts, because it does look, like, if it wasn't me, I would think, like, it's crazy. But it doesn't affect me, because after going through something so bad, like, the opinions of people that don't even know me or know the full story is just not going to affect me.
You think because you've survived, anything else is secondary?
Because, like, that was just so bad, what I went through, that what is some opinions to me is just, it's not gonna touch me.
But when people say that you are not telling the truth...
But I know the truth will come out after the trial, so...
But if you've truly been through such a trauma, isn't that a terrible thing to hear?
Well, I know it will eventually come out, so it's not like I'll forever be disbelieved.
Can you understand, though, why some parts of the story don't seem to make a lot of sense?
Yeah, it does sound weird, because, like, for example, some people think that the guy that I went to the village with is the guy that took me in the first place. But then, in my mind, he's the one that saved me, you know, and actually helped for my release.
At the time?
At the time, yeah. So that, I don't think that makes sense, but...
But why would your abductor go to all that trouble to kidnap you and then simply hand you in?
Because he still demanded money from me on my release.
But he wasn't getting any money.
But I was supposed to pay it within a month. So where he'd brainwashed me so much, I was literally, like, stressing about how am I going to pay this money. And that even when I was in the Italian police station, I was thinking, why am I answering these questions when that was my rule not to? Like.
But that's like an honour system. I mean, what sort of kidnapper releases their victim and puts them on some sort of honour system to pay the money back when they get home?
Because I was so brainwashed into thinking that if I don't do it, I'm just going to die, so I have to do it. Like, that was my mindset, I had to do it, otherwise I would just not come out alive.
But he knew you didn't have that sort of money because you'd told him.
I know, but he said I'd just have to get it from somewhere. He did offer to help, but he said I have to get as much as I can because it's not. He said he's willing to pay 250 basically, but he required 50 before Black Death because all the money can't come from him, even if he was allowed. So.
It's very strange, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's strange now looking back at it, but at the time I just didn't think anything else of it. I just had to pay this, and I knew that I had to do that to survive.
Well, here's the architect of this elaborate plan, you know, the architect of this very complex kidnapping, which
well, they weren't getting anywhere with trying to get the money from Phil. I think one of the names offered 20,000, but I don't know why they didn't accept that. I think there wasn't enough, so I think it was probably easier for them to just say that I pay it on my release.
I don't think I've ever come across a kidnapper, though, that just puts the victim back into the hands of police and risks getting caught himself, which indeed he has.
Well, they're clearly not very good at it.
They're not very good at it.
Yeah.
That's the understatement. But he comes up with this plan. He comes up with this detailed plan, which starts in Paris,
Yes.
goes all the way through to Milan, and then he just takes you back to the consulate.
With my conditions, yeah.
But surely not for
He
one
knows
moment.
how brainwashed I was, so I would have paid it.
Why were you?
Like if before I left Milan, because those 3 weeks I was like in bits. Like I still thought this was 100% real. Like they're literally going to get me, and still being in the place where I got kidnapped is not safe at all. And especially that I'm a witness for the trial, that's like the most vulnerable position to be, because they'll do anything to stop me giving evidence, you know. So that was the scariest part. But after those 3 weeks, one of the Italian investigators said he knows the truth behind the whole story, so I don't have to be as fearful as I am now when I go back to the UK. So then I heard about the court stuff, you know, what the prosecutor was saying, and then it was all like adding up. I was talking to people back in the UK on the little phone that the consulate had given me, and they were all just trying to like piece it together for me and like trying to like put my mind at ease, you know, because I was still like in bits thinking that I'm just going to not have long left.
When he dropped you at the consulate, Chloe, why didn't you point him out to police then?
Because he told me to say that he's a friend. So initially I did say this because I still relied on him. Even though he gave me back, it still wasn't over because of these conditions. I relied on him to sort out the payment, because he gave me this little business card thing that said his email address on the dark web, and it had like a Grim Reaper on it, and it said permanent solution. And that was how I was supposed to contact him to organise the payment, because it was through Bitcoin. Like I couldn't just drop it there. I still relied on this guy because he was the only person from the Black Death that would actually help me.
But what sort of underworld figure carries a business card identifying themselves as an underworld criminal?
Well, it said MD on it, so he would never tell me his real name or nationality. It just had, I had to call him MD.
Did you think that was strange, though, getting a business card with his ID on it?
He just gave it to me like before we went to the consulate.
Would you agree that you're a little bit naive?
Yes, now, but still, like, getting drugged with ketamine and like unconscious in the car, I can't. Back then, I don't think anyone in my position would doubt they are who they say they are, you know.
You're a strange mix, aren't you, of toughness, naivety.
I know. Well, I've definitely learned a lot from this. Like, I would never like just go anywhere on my own.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore. So, in a way, I'm lucky. I've learned the hard way, definitely, but it's an eye opener.
Why didn't you tell the Italian police that you'd been shoe shopping with one of your abductors?
Well, I like brushed it off at first because it was on, you know, it was on the Sunday, and this interview was like 15 hours at the police, so I was just super tired. So I just thought this would amount to like more questions and more detail having to give, so I just like brushed it off. And then the prosecutor came in after, and then he said that he'd spoken to the shoe woman. She confirms I was there. He was like, "You've got to remember that, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I admit it." And then that was that.
But when you say brushed it off,
I just said I don't know.
is that a euphemism for lying by omission?
No, I just said I don't know. Like,
Chloe, that's a pretty important point, though, isn't it?
what do you mean?
To go shoe shopping with the person who kidnapped you.
It was just to get shoes to go to the consulate in, because his original plan was to drop me 20 minutes away. so the cameras don't catch his face. He was going to drop me 20 minutes and just tell me to walk to the consulate and go back to the house. So he said, you need shoes, because I didn't have anything. I had just my socks and my bodysuit. So there was like a Polish tracksuit left at the house. So I wore that, and then the shoes that we got at the village.
Would you admit, though, that it is highly unusual? I mean, I've heard of Stockholm Syndrome. I've never heard of shoe shopping syndrome.
Yeah, I know, but it is weird. But then he's the one that saved me in my eyes, and we were forming this like bond, and I had to have that bond with him in order for him to release me and believe me that I was gonna not answer police questions, that I would pay him the money, I would do everything like that. So that was my mission, because he was the only person like on my side and my key to freedom, basically. So I had to do everything I could to get him on my side.
It's one of the things, isn't it, that's made people highly suspicious
Yeah.
of your story. When you were in the shop, couldn't you have just made a run for it with people around you?
No, because it was still, he said Black Death agents are nearby, they're watching you. He was armed at all times. I couldn't do that, because I would still be killed. He made me believe that even if I managed to escape, I would still be killed. I had to go about this the right way, had to get the official release and all of that before I was able.
Why did you believe him?
He was just so convincing in everything he would say. Like, if I'd ask him a question about anything, he would answer in so much depth, no hesitation at all. Like, even there was one point where Phil emailed his boss about the names, and he said that he emailed Phil about the names, but Black Death weren't allowed to know that he had given names. And then he was like so frustrated with Phil. He was like, oh, CK is gonna find out about the names. He was just like so stressed out about it, and I was thinking, like, how could you act that? It was just so believable. He never gave me the reason to doubt.
One of the witnesses in the village said that you looked very comfortable, that you were sort of sharing a few laughs with him while you were shopping.
I wasn't laughing, we were just walking.
Was that part of the act, though, that you were trying to make him feel comfortable?
What do you mean?
Well, the fact that you looked to outsiders as being, I don't know, almost a couple. Were you trying consciously to do that?
Yeah, at this point I had known that I'm going to be released on a Monday, so I was making sure I don't mess up in any way. Like, I've got to tread on eggshells basically to keep this guy happy, so that he doesn't like have a last minute change of plan. Because, you know, things were always changing. He would go to do the email checks at the bottom of the mountain, so he'd go out of the house for like 20 minutes at a time, and he'd always come back with news from his boss. So those were the most tense times for me, just waiting to hear what he's going to say and if there's any change of plan. And just to think that, imagine if I had to stay or I wasn't going to get released in the end. So I literally had to walk on eggshells.
He told you that tomorrow I'm going to
Take you to the consulate.
and set you free, effectively.
Yeah, because we got the letter on Sunday evening.
But he was saying, when you go to that consulate, do not tell police.
His plan then was still to drop me 20 minutes away, but it's because we arrived in Milan so early. It was like 2 hours before the consulate even opened. He didn't want to leave me there by myself, so that's when he said, I've got to say that he's a friend, and that I called him on my release.
Yeah, so just take me back through that. So on the day of your release, you get up super early.
4 a.m.
And he says he's going to drive you and drop you off somewhere, and you can walk the rest of the way?
Yes, somewhere that I could see the consulate, but not so the cameras can catch his face.
And then what happened?
And then we arrived at about 7:30. The consulate opens at 9:30. So he parks the car in like a car park next to the consulate. Then he explains to me what he's going to do, and say that I've got to say that he's a friend, and that I called him on a random person's phone once I got released, and that's what I had to say. So we went to this cafe next to the consulate, which is where he gave me the card with the email one, and was explaining about the Bitcoin thing and everything. So I was like, how am I going to get a deal? I don't even know what Bitcoin is. So so when the consulate opened, we went up, and then I just said, can I talk in private, because there's people behind us. And then he came in as well, and the lady said, you need to go to the private room. And then he insisted on coming with me, and she was like, no, only she can come. But I don't think he 100% trusted that I would not say that he's the guy. So I went into this private room, and then he was like, okay, I'm gonna go then. And then she was like, no, you can't go, we need you. So then the consulate called the police, and then I came out of the private room to talk to the police, and then I saw him in the other room, and he was like shaking his head at me, because he obviously thought that I had said he's the guy, and that's why the police had got here. I don't think he knew that I actually did say what he wanted me to say.
Oh, I see, yeah. Because at that stage you still thought that,
I still relied on him to help me with.
and at that
What's
stage you
left.
still thought he was connected to Black Death.
Yes,
and
yeah.
that you were going to be in trouble for outing him.
Yes.
But just going back to that thing again, you know, talking about moments in the story that people are suspicious about. I mean, your kidnapper takes you to breakfast before he releases you.
Well, he's not the guy that took me. That's what I thought. So that's why I don't think people understand that. He's not one of the masked men in my eyes. He was the one that came and is trying everything he can, but he just physically can't because he's not in enough power to do so.
So you thought.
Yes.
But he was one of the masked men.
We think, yeah.
So the kid. Oh, so,
It's so confusing.
I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just. I mean, it's beyond bizarre, isn't it? The kidnapper takes you to breakfast. He says, "I'm going to release you. I'm going to set you free. But just before I do that, I'll just go and get some bacon and eggs."
I don't think he ate. He just had a juice. I can't remember.
It's very strange.
I know.
He obviously thought that weird plan was going to work as well.
Yes. He probably thought, oh, like a quite high-profile British model, she's going to have loads of people that's going to pay the ransom, they're going to profit out of this. That's what I think now. And I think that the guy that left, you know, on the first day, who I've identified as Michael, I think he probably knew that what he's doing is wrong. And he probably got cold feet, basically, and backed out of the plan. That's why he left. And Lucas just did everything to try and get the money. That's what I think now.
Did you manage to manipulate Lucas?
Yes, that's what I had to do. Like, I knew that if I didn't, because as soon as he said that they're flexible on the young mother rule, I thought that's not enough to get me out. So I had to do something else. And where we were talking more and, you know, like, because this time we had together, we were just talking and everything. So we had that time to create a bond, and I had to use that to my advantage. And I knew he was the only guy that, like, my life is in his hands, basically, so.
Was there a relationship between you and Lucas?
Not sexually, no. But I had to promise him for the future and say, because he would always like hint and stuff towards the end of the week. Like at the start, when it was still formal, he was like, they can't do anything to the girls because it devalues them if they're touched before being sold. But towards the end of the week, he started, you know, like when he realized he was going to release me, he started making hints and stuff. So I would always say, like, if I gave him what he wanted then why would he release me, you know? So I had to say, right, well, after I'm released, I'm not in the right frame of mind to do that now, but after, I promise I'll do that and I'll meet you and stuff. So I gave him that hope, and then that's why he really trusted me and I guess set me free. So if I was to just like kick a fuss, and he said that if I was to like be a bitch about the situation, then he would have just got the Romanians to look after me, and it wouldn't be like this because he came from his holiday in Rome to sit there and watch me.
Effectively, then, you tried to make him fall in love with you.
Yes.
In order to survive.
Yes, everything I did was to survive.
I ask you that question because Michael, his brother, now says it was a normal relationship between you and Lucas.
What do you mean a normal relationship?
Well, there was no kidnapping plan, plot, it never happened. The last time he saw you and Lucas together, it was just a normal relationship.
That doesn't even make sense.
That's not true.
No, not true.
So you didn't have...
Because Lucas has admitted his role, but because he hasn't had the chance, like, he's been in jail since, so he hasn't had the chance to, like, see, like, the papers out, but Michael has been free since, so I guess he's seeing the papers and the media doubting me, so he's got that idea, used his lawyer to say that, and then...
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's been facing extradition, he's been different,
doing everything he can to not.
Yeah.
Because he knows, like, why wouldn't you go to trial if you're not guilty? Then you would, wouldn't you?
Mm. Well, I suppose...
He knows that once he gets on that plane, he's not coming back.
I suppose more pertinently for you, that the question, you know, because if you take the doubters and if you take their cynicism and their skepticism for your story to the nth degree, then you're left thinking, well, hang on a minute. I mean, if I say, for instance, if I'm sitting here thinking Chloe Ayling's lying, I'm also thinking, why would you lie in order to put two innocent men in jail for a long time?
I know, it doesn't make sense.
I mean, that would be the ultimate in maliciousness, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and they have all the evidence they need, so...
I guess the other thing that plays into that, Chloe, is it's the injection of profile, isn't it?
Who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a big part in it. If I was just like a different job, you know, not glamour, then I think that everyone would have a complete different view on the story.
The increase in your profile,
Yeah.
the increase in publicity plays into people's skepticism, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Have you been...
Like I saw some comments online that said if I was just like a normal looking older woman, then I would be getting sympathy and everything, but because I look how I do and I do glamour, then people automatically would associate that with publicity, so it's not fair.
What, you think you should have played the victim more?
No, I think people should start treating the victim as a victim and not automatically looking for other things, you know, it's just not fair.
But are you saying if you were more distraught, if you looked more emotional, if you weren't young and attractive, people would have more sympathy?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Well, people don't even know, like, the 3 weeks in Milan, no one saw that, no one witnessed that. Like, I was crying every day, I didn't want to leave my apartment, and people only see when I get back 3 weeks later, I've seen my family for the first time, I'm smiling, like, then see, it's just completely different perception of what happened, so.
You've toughened up quite quickly though, haven't you?
Yes, I am a tough person, but I think that's what actually got me through this, because if I was just kicking a fuss and like crying to him every day, then I don't think it would have ended the way it did.
And yet it's a strange mix, because you believed a lot of what these guys said.
Yeah.
Which is it's a pretty up there story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not for me to say what you would, you know, what I would believe in your position, in your shoes. It's too subjective. But
I know, 'cause it's easy for people to say, oh, you should have believed this, you should act this way, but then you literally, when you're in that position, you can't say what you should have done. You just do what you need to do to survive. So.